Welcome, and thanks for joining us for episode 5 of Code Girls on Air Season 2, a podcast that explores all things technology, female leadership, careers, education, and topics within the nonprofit sector. In this episode of Code Girls on Air, we interviewed Elaine Westbrook, an assistant professor at Montana State University Billings. Join us to hear more about her story. So welcome to Code Girls on Air. Go ahead and just say your name and a little bit about your background.
So I'm Dr. Elaine Westbrook. I am an assistant professor at MSUB for the College of Education. I teach pre-service teachers how to teach science and technology and some other things.
Very cool. Yeah, so you started your career as a research and development and quality assurance chemist in 2 completely different industries, electronics and agriculture coatings. What did that hands-on lab experience teach you about science in the real world, and how does that shape your approach to teaching today?
So what really kind of got me in when I was working in those industries was what I didn't connect with in school. None of my chemistry degree made sense until I started applying it in the lab. And I was like, oh, that's why we do titration, and that's what this is for. So the application process, really experiential learning and having a purpose for why I was running labs became a lot more evident. And both of those jobs, I had a lot of regulatory work. And that gave me the ability to see the value in kind of both sides of the coin. The business side and what do we got to do to make money? And then the environmental impact side of what do we need to do to not negatively impact the environment.
Sure. Yeah, super interesting. So career shifts can be pretty daunting. What inspired you to take that leap from the laboratory to the classroom, and what role did NASA and the Girl Scouts play in that transition?
So they played a tremendous role. I have 3 daughters. I have twins that are 29 and a 28-year-old. They were all in Girl Scouts. I'm a lifetime Girl Scout. And that council, at that time, I think it was the Council of West Central Florida, invited me to train with the James Webb Telescope. I don't know what year it was, 2005, 4, maybe 6. And I was still in the R&D setting, but I had a fellow coworker say, you know, you really light up when you talk about teaching Girl Scouts, especially about like the NASA mission and activities that I brought back from that training. And so I kind of decided, I think I'm going to take the leap and move from industry to the classroom. I think without that encouragement, I might not have gone. And that was when the big shift happened, when I just decided to leave. And within 2 weeks, I was teaching in a classroom. Those high school kids hadn't had a teacher since Christmas. This was right after spring break. And so I learned on the fly how to manage a classroom.
For sure. That is so cool and very inspiring, just how you kind of dove in head first. So moving, kind of talking about NASA and that whole career shift, you've completed NASA training for multiple missions and even applied to the Teacher in Space program. What drew you to space education, and what has your NASA training taught you about learning on a cosmic scale?
I think what drew me was that original James Webb Telescope training. I had some astronomy courses in my undergrad that, quite frankly, I don't remember them at all. I remember taking a telescope into the middle of the road and in the middle of the night to look at something, but that's about all I remember from that course. When I went to the teacher training and I got to use a telescope that was the size of this house, was when I was really inspired, and we learned activities to do with the kids. And then I was like, oh, I can really kind of ignite that spark with others through sharing. After that, I started seeking out other NASA missions. Any NASA training I could find, I would go to it. I studied on the Dawn mission. I studied on a couple of different Mars missions, the Phoenix mission. I studied at Notre Dame. I went to California. Anybody that would take me, I would go. And those, I think that passion really came through in my teaching. And that really inspired my students. So I kind of always said my students had to take chemistry, right? That was a required subject in Florida where I taught. They did not have to take astronomy, but it was kind of like a rite of passage. They wanted to take it. Usually they took it their senior year, and they did great. I was passionate about it. I wanted to teach them things. There's topics within that cosmic scale that still kind of blow my mind. I kept a little notebook of like PhD topics I would study if I went and got a doctorate in astrophysics, right? Like I was constantly like, man, why don't we know these things? Why are we still trying to figure it out? And on the cosmic scale, it's because there's so much we don't know about space that we are still trying to figure out. Even in the day and age of we're having another technology boom, we still can't untap what has happened beyond our planet. I mean, there's things on our planet we don't understand, but beyond here and beyond, we know a fair amount of things in our solar system. There's still things in the solar system we don't understand. I think it's that not knowing and the pondering, the really critical analysis that drives me. And I think trying to get students to kind of like think about that in a different way, like we don't know everything and it's okay because we need to try to figure it out. I think that's what really drove me to do that.
For sure. And yeah, especially astronomy, all of that is so fascinating because like you said, a lot of it we don't know yet. Recently I watched this YouTube video done by Hank Green, and it was talking about how Jupiter has obviously the 4 Galilean moons and how they have really reshaped how we think about the solar system, not only in Galileo's time when we were just figuring out that the sun, we actually revolve around the sun, not the other way around. But even now when we look at the different moons and how there might even be potential for life on one of them, I'm not sure which one, but yeah, things like that. It's so insightful and so interesting. And yeah, Hank Green, he's so cool. He lives in Missoula, Montana.
Wicked cool.
Yes. So yeah, kind of on that subject, we were talking about the James Webb Telescope, arguably the most impressive man-made thing in the sky right now. How do you bring that sense of cosmic wonder into the classroom, and how do students respond to it, especially those who say they might not be science people?
So it's interesting that you asked that question because I just rewrote our education. So we have an integrated science curriculum for elementary education at the university. And I just revamped the whole curriculum. They took it out of the College of Health and Professional Sciences and put it back in the College of Ed. So I have basically astrophysics one semester. So it's astronomy-based or earth space science-based physical sciences. And then the second semester is astrobiology. So it's astronomy-based biology. And I just completed the first year. And I did that because I wanted students to look at that in a different light, not static, like this is a chemical reaction and this is how this works. This is the way the reaction happens. But how does it apply on an astronomical level? Hoping that it would engage students at a deeper level and build self-efficacy because they are intimidated by their science courses. And I think being able to get through those two courses and understand in a different light, life and physical science based on an earth space perspective, gives them, I'm hoping, a bolster as they move out of their gen ed class into their methods class, and that it lasts a lifetime, that they use that to kind of feel comfortable teaching science in the class.
You've taught chemistry and astronomy at the high school level and now train pre-service teachers. What differences do you see in how younger students and future educators engage with STEM content, and where do you see the most potential for growth?
Well, I think the disadvantage was I taught at a STEM magnet high school, so they were pretty excited about learning. Some of them were not excited about chemistry. They used to, I'm only here for you. I'm not here for the chemistry. I'm like, well, we both got to do it. So I feel like sometimes students are just putting in the time and not engaging with the material. And it's hard to figure out how to get everyone to engage. Definitely the confidence level is not there for the pre-service teachers. Some of them are there, but I don't think they chose education because they love STEM. Some of them love STEM after they have me, and then they want to continue. I have several students that are still working with me on various other projects because they really kind of got connected to it. But they still say things like, I'm not any good at science. And I'm like, well, believe it or not, you're doing it and you seem perfectly fine. Yeah. I think the other thing is when you're in high school, I feel like you're expected to know everything. And what I tell my educators, my pre-service teachers is don't think you're going to have this content memorized. There's no way you're going to know everything. In fact, students usually know more than you do, and it's fine. And if you don't know something, go look it up. That's what we got the Google for now. If you don't think, if you don't teach somebody something incorrectly, verify it first. So I think kind of they're in different lanes, if you will. I don't expect pre-service teachers to be experts in STEM. There's no way. There's too much content. There's no way you're going to have life science, earth space science, and physical science, all of those memorized. You should have a good grasp of it. So I think it's just different avenues of where those students are and what they're there for. I think education is more about relationship building and being able to share learning experiences, whereas being a high school student is trying to get to the next level, right? Like you're usually trying to get out, get to the next thing and check the box. A lot of times what I tell pre-service teachers is quit checking the box. I'm here to make you a professional. I'm not here for you to just turn in an assignment because that's not what I want.
For sure. In school, we kind of call it, oh, you're just phoning it in today. You're just doing the bare minimum just to say you've did the requirement, but you're not actually taking it in. You're not actually caring to understand it fundamentally, which is the really important part. And the thing that obviously you should be prioritizing as you're learning, because that is what you will remember and what you will carry on.
Yes.
So yeah, you've done research on how where a student grows up can affect how they connect with science. And why does it matter to bring local or personal experiences into STEM learning?
I think that it gives a reason to know the content. Whether I've taught in urban settings, I've taught in suburban settings, I've taught in rural settings, I've done it all. And I've had students question me endlessly about why do I need to know pH? Why do I need to know this or that, right? From the chemistry land, if you will, that background, I usually could connect it. I've had students like, I'm going to be a cosmetologist. I'm like, well, you better not screw up my hair when you color it. You better understand the alkalinity of what you're doing because that is going to be critical. To the aspect of, I think being able to adjust that to where you are and what's important. A lot about rural has all the same things. It's, chemical, if you talk about chemistry, the aspects of soil science or the aspects of your water. Everybody drinks water and you need to know what's in it and what is it doing to you. What is it, if you're not drinking it, what is it doing to you? From the astronomy standpoint, like if we go down that lane, it's being an informed citizen about why certain topics are important in order to be able to vote. Everyone's going to get a chance to vote, and they need to understand the importance of discovery of what we don't know or how it ties into what we want to know in many aspects. I don't think anybody in rural America 10 years ago would have said, wow, I can't wait to get my hands on a drone to spray my crops, right? But here we are trying to use drones to spray our crops so we don't have to fly through, drive the tractor through all the fields. There's lots of technology advances that have really impacted what happens in rural areas. So it goes both ways. There's always a tie-in. STEM's happening everywhere. You just have to be able to kind of think outside the box and understand the connection that how it affects you.
For sure. So your doctoral work focuses on STEM equity, especially for girls, rural youth, and Native American communities. What are some of the biggest barriers that these groups face, and how can educators begin breaking them down?
I think the biggest thing I've seen, it kind of is different in each lane. So if I talk about girls, it's giving a girl an opportunity to fail and be okay with it. I feel a lot of girls build a lot of pressure on themselves to be perfect. I taught the valedictorian when I taught high school, and we had a Girl Scout troop there, and we built, I feel like it was a popsicle bridge. I don't know. It was ridiculously dumb. Whatever. It wasn't dumb, but it was like, it wasn't as cool as like her CAD drawings that were happening downstairs. And she's like, this is the best experience I've had because I don't have a bunch of boys trying to take over. And I was like, that has impacted me for 15 years now. That's a really big thing. I think in the rural environment, it's making the connection between what's happening in rural areas and what's happening in STEM. I don't think people really think about that farming and ranching is engineering on a daily basis. And I think those connections need to be explicitly clear to those communities, also opportunities brought in for them. And the Native American communities, which is interesting, this is some work that I'm working on right now, is how do cultural perspectives of STEM and science differ from Western perspectives? And being able to view both of those at the same time and integrate them, or we call it two-eyed seeing something such as water through two lenses. The Upsalaga believe that water is alive. And I, as a chemist, the first time I learned this, I was, that did not sit with me very well. I have a very ingrained Western way of thinking up until this point, and it took me 6 months to kind of get that unraveled from my head, because water to me was 2 hydrogens, 1 oxygen. It had a job. It was liquid, not alive. And then I read Braiding Sweetgrass, and Robin Kemmer talked about how you can't have life without water. And then I started tying it to my astronomy background and life outside of the planet Earth, and I started making these kind of cosmology connections, and I'm like, oh, all right, now I'm really starting to see things in a different light. And I think being open and being humble enough to give everyone a chance from wherever they've come from whichever lane they've come out of, to bringing lessons to them that are impactful to their community and to them as a person, and listening a lot. Wow. So many teachers, so many researchers, they don't listen to youth. This is a soapbox I'm on right now. I started this work 5 years ago. And I do focus groups with 3rd through 5th graders, and you wouldn't believe what the hell they say to you. I'm like, what do you want me to tell teachers about making lessons for you? And they say some really interesting things. I think we'll get to one thing here in a minute, but that was kind of a new twist to actually talking to the youth or the students themselves, instead of asking their parents, instead of asking their teachers. That means somebody else has to make the decision for them, instead of listening to what they say and verifying that what they're saying, making sure you're interpreting that correctly.
For sure. Yeah. So, what are some of those insights that they were giving you? What are some of the suggestions?
This one's the best. The girls. So, I did a study where I looked at gender differences and how interest developed in pursuing STEM. So, they like to do hands-on. I mean, I think everybody would agree that you want to do something that's hands-on.
For sure.
That was the number one thing. But the differences between boys and girls that really struck me was boys wanted to do group work. Girls do not want to do group work. Boys wanted to do group work. Girls wanted it to be personally relevant. So I did not predict either of those things. I definitely didn't predict group work. That really kind of, I need to get more data and verify that again. But the girls are pretty adamant that they didn't want the boys in the mix. They would like a safe space on their own, and that's just not affordable in classrooms. So that one's kind of hard to maneuver. You could try to make all girl groups, but you still have personality conflicts. So you just have to, I feel like as females, we knew that. But to be able to have some research that pinpoints it speaks more volumes than anything else could speak.
For sure. And that definitely kind of surprises me, because I'd almost expect it to be the opposite. I'd kind of expect girls to want to do more group work versus boys wanting to do more individual things. But yeah, that's very fascinating.
Yep.
Yeah, so how can we use these findings to design better experiences for girls? And what are some attainable steps that we could be taking now?
So I think really understanding who you're designing curriculum for or lessons for. When I have a couple of girls that I go back to now. I had an all-girl camp last summer, and I had 2 or 3 young ladies. One young lady, I think, will go into education, but the other young lady is probably going to be an environmental lawyer. And I mean, she's in 6th grade, but I can just, sometimes you can just read it. You can just see where the path is going. So like right now I'm designing a drone curriculum, but I'm like, well, what would Eva want? Well, Eva would want to be able to collect data with drones that would help the environment in some way or help animals in a way, right? Like that is personally relevant. And I think probably a lot of females might connect with that. Everybody wants to do hands-on, and we're definitely going to put that in there. But how do I make this a little more personal and a little less techy? So without talking to girls, I won't know. So I'll have to, as we're building this curriculum, we have an all-girl camp this summer. And so I'll try to touch base with a couple of girls and find out what would, make this good for them. I know one girl already told me, like, if we make a drone, we were designing like a drone flight path to go to the store to get hot Cheetos. Like, she wants hot Cheetos. I'm like, all right, hot Cheetos it is. I can be down with that because I like hot Cheetos, and I am with you. So, really trying to take that into account. What's the personal relevance in this, and how do we kind of make that infusion into the curriculum.
For sure. Yeah, I think definitely knowing your audience, especially when trying to tailor make curriculum for them, is so, so important. So, kind of moving on to wrap up, with over 2 decades in STEM education, you've worn a lot of hats, from chemist to NASA trainee to doctoral researcher. What thread has really tied it all together for you?
I think wanting to know more about STEM in general, like, I can't tell you how many times I've said, like, oh, I should go back and get another degree. And I'm like, no, you should not. You've done that. You've played that game and done that thing. I think it's that, and the fact that I want to be an advocate for those that aren't experiencing equity in STEM fields. So it's always been that thread of advocacy, girls, rural, Native American communities. Those three things can be very different or all in one. But there's pieces that play into that can affect each one a little differently. So you have to kind of be careful about how that's done. And I will say, my background with Girl Scouts kind of got me really hot, because when I was doing my research, right? So if we think about my chemical background to NASA training to doctoral research, I went back and I looked at Girl Scouts and I was like, all right, who did they sample? Because Girl Scouts is not really prevalent here in Montana. Who did they talk to when they interviewed girls? Well, they interviewed to make a STEM program. They interviewed girls in an urban setting and then another set in a suburban setting. And they did not talk to any rural girls. And I was pretty hot about that. I didn't think that was a good sampling. And I think they were missing out on something. And I think it was about money. If you don't have a high enough number, right? You don't have your end value isn't high, then it's like bang for your buck. I experienced the same thing in research. I get dogged a lot of the time for not having a big N in my sample size. I'm like, this is rural Montana. This is not Atlanta.
Yeah, for sure.
It is not even Appalachia rural. And I trying to get others to understand what that looks like is pretty difficult. We spend a lot of time trying to explain that as well. But I think STEM and advocacy is what ties those all together for me.
Awesome. So, what do you hope that young girls, especially those from these small towns or underrepresented backgrounds, can take away when they hear your story?
Don't be afraid to fail. It's okay to fail. As long as you get up and you try again. I couldn't tell you how many times I've made a mistake. I didn't become the teacher in space. Chemistry degree was really hard. The doctoral degree wasn't any easier. But I just kept trying again and again. The perseverance and the grit are really, I think, what kind of can make females different from males. I feel like there's a lot of more barriers that you have to overcome. And I think pointing out sometimes the barriers to others is a difficult way to do it, and especially in this political environment. But if maybe you ignore that. Maybe you let somebody else do that for you. But you got to get up and try again. It's okay. If you don't take the risk, you'll never know what could have happened. And I think that's the biggest piece is you've got to take the risk in order to find yourself and what might be your story. You don't know until you try. The safe route is you're always worried about something in the background. The risky route, as long as you know it could or could not happen, sure. But the rewards, I think, are pretty great once it pays off.
For sure. What an incredible way to end this podcast today, talking about just like, yeah, that tenacity and being unwilling to give up even when it gets hard, even when you might fail, just staying strong. Awesome. Thank you so much for being on Code Girls On Air today. This was an incredible interview and very insightful for girls and all of the listeners all over the place. So thank you so much. Thank you so much for listening to episode 5 of season 2 of Code Girls On Air. Next week, we will be talking to Suzanne Collins, a professional executive coach. Join us on Friday, October 24th to hear more about her story. Thank you so much for listening and have a great rest of your week.